Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Chelsea, the host of Healthy Pregnancy to a Healthy Newborn Life. We're so glad to have Trill here. She is an expert when it comes to breastfeeding, allergies that is related to newborns, babies, and during pregnancy. So welcome, Trill. It's so glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Chelsea. It's an honor.
Yeah, definitely. I was curious, how did you get into this industry?
Yeah, so it was my own food allergy journeys with my children, as I feel like isn't super uncommon for mommies who or parents who see an issue in this space and then go to try to make that better for those who come after us. So for my particular journey, I had my oldest about 7 years ago, and she very, very young was really inconsolable. And eventually we found out that she had food allergies and reacted to proteins transferred from my diet to my breast milk. And at the time, I was finishing a PhD in molecular biology. And so I happened to know a lot about proteins and protein analysis. And fast forward to my second daughter being born with a similar issue, also dealt with food reactivity. And this time around, on the other side of graduate school, kind of popping my head out of the sand and saying, like, okay, where are the resources and the research to help me navigate another food allergy journey? Because I want to continue to breastfeed if I can. And what I found were lots of other families like me and little to no resources, which was the birth, if you will, pun intended, of Free to Feed. And now I focus my research and my company on helping parents navigate food allergies. And we've created the first test kit that actually allows you to detect allergens in human milk. We're in the midst of working towards launching that now.
Amazing. Yeah, people need that when they're, confused of like what's going on, especially with a newborn the first time. So what is your website where people can go ahead and get that test kit?
Yeah, so you can go to freetofeed.com, and on the website, if you are kind of just starting out, especially if you're a new parent, because it can be hard to know what's normal and what's not normal for our littles. On the very first page of our website, we have a free quiz that you can take that goes through symptoms that are common for infant food allergies. It actually gives you also a free training where it's my silly face giving you the scientific basics on what's happening in baby's body and our body when we're dealing with food reactivity like this. So that's where people can kind of get started. It's a great place and resource to kind of get the fundamentals down.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, that's going to be so helpful for so many people here to go check that out. Go through the quiz at least to see, okay, is it a potential allergy that you're dealing with, the kid's dealing with? So, did you have allergies prior to this and that you knew about?
Yeah, so personally, I have what's called IgE mediated food allergies. And so I have what we think of as like a stereotypical food allergy to things like shellfish and the bee stings, where I have an EpiPen. So if I get stung by a bee and I have an EpiPen to stab into my thigh and I need to go to the hospital because I go into anaphylactic shock. What's interesting though, and what I didn't know until I ended up on this journey, is that there's an entirely other category of food allergies that's called non-IgE mediated food allergies, which is more likely to impact our infants, children under 5, and their symptoms look different. They're typically things like vomiting, reflux, they may be inconsolable, they may have diarrhea, mucousy stool, constipation, bloody stool, vomiting. There's a whole slew to include skin reactivity of these particular symptoms that are specific to having reactivity as a very, very young child.
Yeah. So was it for your case then, how was it that you end up finding the allergies within your child? Was it like the whole vomiting stool that you realized or?
Yeah, so my journeys were a little bit different between kiddos, which is common and unfortunate because you think going into the second baby, like, oh, I've got this. And of course, they throw you for a loop. So with my oldest, she had what's called allergic procticulitis, which means that she had really egregiously bloody stool, which as a new parent, you can imagine how terrifying that is to like open up your baby's diaper and just see like a ton of blood. That's not a good feeling. So if anybody's listening who's in the midst of this, you're not alone. And want to say that with her, reactivity, she also had a really awful eczema from head to toe. And got to the point where it was so bad she was infected and weeping, which is really truly hard to navigate with like such a little bitty body that's itchy and uncomfortable. So with her, we ended up admitted to the hospital because her symptoms got so severe, and they put her on a 24-hour starvation diet. And that's really hard when you're the food at the hospital. And on the other side of that, they said that since she got better, not being fed anything, and she just got a little bit better over those 24 hours, that she must have a food allergy. And that's how they confirmed it for us. I don't recommend that for anyone ever. It was awful. And because of the type of reactions, since I mentioned that non-IgE mediated food allergy, unfortunately, all of the tests that we have available is specific to that anaphylactic shock style reaction, that IgE allergy. So there's no test for these children to say, this, your baby's allergic to peanuts, and now you know. Unfortunately, for little bitties that have these non-IgE mediated food allergies, the only way to do it is elimination and reintroduction. And so trying to take things out of your diet, put things back in your diet, it is a task. And so with my oldest, because her symptoms were so egregious and I really didn't have any assistance or support through it, I was just given a laundry list of foods that might cause my baby to have these types of reactions. And I removed all of them from my diet, and I stayed that way for a year. I do not recommend anybody else do that. It was really, really rough on my mental and physical health. And that's really the reason why a few years later, when I had my second, I was like, okay, nope, there's got to be something better. So with my oldest, I don't actually know what she was reactive to, because the good news is that with these infant food allergies, they are very highly likely to outgrow them. Hallelujah for, small favors. So while we can't test for them, they're likely to be outgrown. However, figuring out what your baby's magic combo of things that's causing them an issue in the meantime can be really hard, which is where Free to Feed comes in, and why we offer today, until the test strips are available especially, we offer consultation services and a food allergy support package to help parents navigate that elimination diet, the reintroduction, confirmation, and making sure that your diet's sustainable long term.
Yeah, to help find that. So then they're not having to go through all this long-term pain, which is
Exactly.
huge. So, I know me personally, I have a lot of allergies as well with like nature. That's more of mine allergies, pets as well. So I'm sure a lot of other people here listening have allergies too from time to time. So what are things that you would recommend for those that are, either pregnant or trying to get pregnant, to help with us, to help just either have a healthy pregnancy or not pass down the allergies as well, or have that immune system reactive when they're pregnant?
Yeah, that is a super common question that I get, especially for families who have had one child with food allergies, or if food allergies running their family. And of course, we don't want that for our children. So one of the main kind of takeaways I would say is, first and foremost and top of the list, is any kind of stress reduction tactics that work for you specifically. And so for some of us, that is, deep cleaning a carpet. For some of us, that is yoga, meditation, walks, whatever it is for you. For me, I mean, I have a 4-year-old, so mine's hiding in a closet and eating chocolate. But whatever yours is that brings stress down for you, that's the number one thing that can impact your gastrointestinal health, your immunology, like all of the things, and your baby's development are impacted by your cortisol levels. And so that's the first thing, always on the top of the list, which is also want to recognize that that's not an easy task, right? Like, we're either trying to conceive or we're pregnant, and that, sometimes it feels like the world's on fire. So I realize that, like, sitting here and having Dr. Trill be like, oh, just relax. Okay. So that's the first. The second that I would state is that it's so very important that, as a person who's either trying to conceive, pregnant, or breastfeeding, that you're not consuming foods that elicit you a response. And that can be any response to a food. That might be, IgE style reactivity, if you can avoid that, certainly. But even like for those of us who have a reactivity to wheat, for those of us who are like, yeah, I want to eat tomatoes, it gives me heartburn, anything that is a response in your body to a food. For example, like, oh yeah, I have too much dairy and I break out in acne. Those are all reactions that are occurring in your system and can impact your entire biology, essentially, in your gastrointestinal system while you're reactive. So I know that's also hard to hear because I am just as guilty. I will definitely take like wheat out of my diet for my babies all day, every day, but like, don't ask me to do that for me. So just to say that if there's anything that causes you issues, GI or otherwise, to remove that from your diet. And then make sure that if you are removing anything for your own health, that you are ensuring that your micronutrients are complete. So a varied, natural diet as much as you can that makes sure that all of your micronutrients are met while you're trying to conceive, you're pregnant, or you're breastfeeding.
Excellent. Yes. So with like micronutrients, you're considering like healthy carb, healthy fat, healthy vegetables, and a healthy protein then for that.
Yeah, so when we're looking at micronutrients, we get a little bit more granular when we look at specifically, are you deficient in any vitamins, right? Do you have enough potassium in your diet? Like those vitamins and minerals that are very, very important to development phases and to making breast milk later down the road. So when we remove something from the diet, let's say I know that when I consume dairy, it gives me GI upset, right? I'm not so happy for a few hours afterwards. And I decide, okay, I am pregnant and I know that dairy causes me GI issues. I'm going to reduce it or remove it. Looking at dairy and saying, okay, well, what is it that I'm going to be missing from my diet if I take this out, right? Is that calcium? Is that vitamin D? Do I have another source of a healthy food that I can get in that will give me those things? And Free to Feed has wonderful resources on that too. We have a list of the top allergens that people most often take out of their diet and how they can get them in other natural whole foods.
That's powerful. So many people miss that of like, okay, I'm going to take out this food or I'm going to take out whatever this is, but is that a nutrients that you actually need? So many people don't
Yeah.
think that. So excellent share. And then for those that are moms then, and they're either dealing with allergies, is there any like recommendations supplement wise or like lowering inflammation, things like that, alternatives that you recommend too for the moms?
Yeah, so for the individuals who are like actively breastfeeding, especially if they're in the midst of dealing with a food allergy journey, they've likely eliminated things from their diet too. And your breast milk is an interesting thing because molecularly, right, like getting a little nerdy for a second, some of the vitamins and minerals that our breast milk is made out of actually pull from our body stores. So, for example, if you're not consuming enough calcium, it's going to pull calcium from your bones. Not wonderful. We don't want that to happen. So we need to make sure we're consuming enough calcium. But the other interesting thing is there are certain other vitamins and minerals that don't do that and will actually be depleted in your breast milk if you're not consuming enough of them. Examples of this are vitamin A, B vitamins, and iodine. So when we're looking at supplementation, first and foremost, certainly looking at the diet, right? Is the diet varied as much as we can? Are we getting in everything that we need already through the whole foods that we're eating? If so, fabulous, wonderful. It's not uncommon though that if we're having to go on an elimination diet that we may be deficient in a few things. And the unfortunate fact of the matter is that many of the pre and postnatal vitamins that are available on the market contain allergens that we're trying to eliminate, right? So if we're like, yeah, I'm trying to be dairy free, but this multivitamin has dairy in it or has soy in it. So Free to Feed actually launched our own allergy friendly postnatal multivitamin specific for families that are navigating this journey. They are little fruit pouches, so they're delicious also, which is great. Just like the like squeeze pouches that you may give your like younger kiddos or that you may steal and put in your purse. Just like those, but it's a daily multivitamin specific for those who are on an elimination diet like this. And that's available at our shop.
Excellent. That's awesome. You guys have that as well for everyone. And then for those, then I guess that now we'll go kind of towards the baby section of like, okay, if a baby has an allergy, what are some of the things to help them cope through this?
Um, yeah,
Fuzzy dealing with the skin issues or the blood
yeah,
vomiting.
it's very hard. I think that the first thing to know is that you're not alone and that you're doing an amazing job. It's so incredibly hard to navigate this, and it's uncommon that we meet with families that are already being told how incredible they are and how proud that we all are of them and the hard work that they've done. So that first and foremost. And then as far as like navigating symptoms, the number one thing is getting to a happy, healthy baby, right? So we know that the stress of an inconsolable baby or a baby that's not sleeping, things like that, is really impactful on the parents, right? Psychologically, physically, all of the above. And what's fascinating, again, a little bit nerdy, is that the more stress that we become, the more we transfer these proteins that we're consuming to our breast, the more baby reacts, the more stressed we become. So it's kind of a nasty little cycle that we can kind of spiral into sometimes. So with that, the first thing when we're working with families is the realization that the number one thing that's going to help the parent is a happy, healthy baby. So we focus there, getting baby to baseline, making sure that the bloody stools are alleviated and healed, the skin is healed, the baby's sleeping again, all those wonderful things that we want to see for our newborn. And then from there, figuring out exactly like what things and teasing out the nuance of like, what does our journey look like? What exactly is our baby reactive to? There are things that are on the market to help with symptomology while you're in the middle of the trenches, right? Creams to help with rashes and things of that accord. But really, as when we dig into it, the number one thing is figuring out what's causing the root cause of the issue, right? And the root reactivity and alleviating that in order for the symptoms to go away.
Okay, so taking out pretty much if the mom's pregnant and has allergies, taking out her allergies things, and then with the baby, identifying what allergy there is, taking that out.
Yep.
And then working on rebuilding that as the next step with your nutrients. What did you just take out? Refill in, use your prenatal for extra supplement, iodine, reduce stress. Is there any other like supplements or alternatives too that you recommend in addition?
Um, any other there's a plethora of supplements and it really depends on what you're deficient in. So if you're taking the multivitamin and there's something specific in there that you're not getting and there's not enough of it in there, there's a plethora of different options that are available in the market to supplement. And it is unfortunate because since every journey is different, it's hard to make a specific recommendation that's kind of a blanket statement because we could have a family here that has reactivity to corn and oats, and that recommendation is going to look different than a family who has reactivity to dairy and soy, right? So
Yeah.
it's really dependent, and I think that's a huge part of why we offer the one-on-one personal consultations with families because it's so nuanced and it's very specific to the journey. So when we meet with families, then we really dig into their specific journey and symptoms and their needs in order to figure out exactly what is the best elimination diet strategy? What is the best confirmation strategy? What does that look like? And can we plug them into the right community of other families that are navigating similar issues?
Okay. And then if somebody's trying to breastfeed and they're dealing with this, what is the process as in like, do you recommend maybe pausing the breastfeeding till we figure out, okay, we do the testing or, transition back? What is the process you would recommend as well for these ladies?
Yeah, so what is so important to realize is that the research indicates that when we consume a food, it's going to spike in concentration a few hours after ingestion and steadily plummet from there, usually gone within 8 hours and almost always within 24 hours. What that means then is it's actually more valuable for you to keep breastfeeding and to start adjusting your diet because your breast milk and the components in your breast milk are constantly changing. So your feed to feed, your breast milk looks different every single feed, which is fascinating and amazing. And it's also important to mention that we're supposed to transfer these foods to our breast, right? We're supposed to, biologically, it's normal to expose your baby to peanuts, to expose your baby to tree nuts when you're consuming them in your diet. That's a normal thing. So when we are navigating this, I always recommend, unless there's a very specific reason to switch, such as, the symptoms are so incredibly egregious that we absolutely have to switch to a formula right now, things of that accord. I always recommend that if the family wants to continue breastfeeding, that they do so and adjust the diet as they go, because that's much more valuable than oftentimes we hear families be told, yeah, you have to remove this from your diet like dairy, and it's going to be there for 2 weeks. So go on formula for 2 weeks and pump like a mad woman. One, the dairy's not in your breast for 2 weeks, and there's no research that supports that. And that would be weird if it was. In that case, my breasts are completely made out of Ben and Jerry's ice cream only. So that would be weird if that did happen. So it's not there for 2 weeks. Two, that's so incredibly hard and creates so many obstacles for families. As somebody who has been told that and gone through that with my oldest, you are suddenly exclusively pumping, right, out of nowhere. That's hard. You are formula feeding while also trying to deal with pumping at the same time. So it's kind of a double, triple feed situation that you're dealing with. And then you're on this new elimination diet. You're trying to figure out if the formula is even going to work. Which formula are you going to go to if your baby has food allergies? There are a handful of options, and the first ones might not be successful. So there's just so much there. And then at the end of a 2 weeks time span or even longer, the probability that you're going to be able to get back to the breast after baby's been on a formula on a bottle for 2 weeks straight is lower, right? It gets lower and lower the longer that you extend out this time that you've taken out breast milk completely for clearance that has probably that food already cleared by the time you were told that you needed to go on formula for 2 weeks. So that's one of the reasons that we're launching this test kit, because it's an at-home test that tells you exactly what's in your breast, because we see the value in just putting the power in parents' hands, right? So that there's no more confusion and discussion around like, well, exactly how long is it in there? Do I have to switch to formula? You can just test your milk and know what's in there. You can have an ingredient deck for the boob and keep breastfeeding if that's what you choose.
Very cool. Yeah. Because the breast milk is so healthy for the baby, also, opposed to like getting off of it. And then great point of like, it's going to be harder to transition to get back on it then if you wanted to. And do you have any input too for like those that are having or using allergy medicines as like a new mom or, during pregnancy or before as well? Or even if it's like over the counter, Benadryl to help with the histamine and things like that.
Yeah, so that's definitely one to talk to your medical provider about, because there's so many, especially now, that are available over the counter or prescription. So it'll depend on kind of where you are in your journey. Are you breastfeeding, and is it a concern for transfer? Are you pregnant? So with that, definitely talking to your medical provider about, hey, we're trying to conceive. These are the medications that I'm on. Are any of these a concern? Do I need to keep any of these in mind, either when I do get pregnant, while I'm trying to conceive, or while I'm breastfeeding? So that's just something to be open and honest about and have those discussions.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I definitely think so as well. And then I think too, with what you've said as well, will help them to potentially get off of this allergy medicine. Like, okay, let's reduce stress. Let's identify the trigger, take that out, give some time for the body to start rebuilding with this healthy nutrients, supplements, food, and then potentially you may not even need that allergy medicine. So,
Yeah, and that's a piece of the puzzle as well, is that if you know that a part of your reactivity could be food related or could be something that you could reduce in your life. For example, if you know that you have a specific like tree pollen allergy and you've got to take medication for that, or otherwise you're stuffy all day long. I get that. Maybe that means seeing if a really good like air purifier in your bedroom while you're sleeping would be impactful, right? Like, what are the different options that you might have in order to reduce your reactivity and even possibly get to the point where the medication isn't necessary?
yeah, excellent share. All of this stuff, Dr. Trill, has just been absolutely amazing. And it's a pleasure to have you on here. Are there any last takeaways that you recommend for moms and newborns?
Yeah, I would say that the number one recommendation that I would have for families and any part of their journey is to listen to your instincts. And even if you're a new parent and this is your first rodeo and you're like, well, I don't really know, listen to your instincts. You are biologically made to know when something is wrong. And so if your gut, your instincts are saying, no, I feel like this is wrong, something is off, to lean into that and to continue to push and advocate for your baby, because that is our job, right? Is to advocate for our children because they can't advocate for themselves. And that's hard. It's so hard to be dismissed, as I have been, to be dismissed by someone and told like, yeah, babies cry, like, um, but she was crying 12 to 15 hours a day. In no other world would you tell me that it was okay if I cried for 15 hours in a day. You would say something's wrong and we should probably figure out what it is. So know that you have those instincts built in and that you can lean on them. And there are people that you can surround yourselves with that will help you support your instincts.
Yeah, definitely. And you have that community and company within that area. So amazing. Where's best for people to follow you, connect with you as well to get help in that area?
Yeah, so our website, as I mentioned, is freetofeed.com, and we are on all the platforms. We're most active over on Instagram. It's free.to.feed, T-O, and that is me. So if you beep up over there, if you have questions, you can DM me. I answer all of my DMs, and I'm happy to help any way that I can. Just know that you aren't alone in this journey, and we are absolutely here to help.
Yeah, and I'll definitely post those links for everyone as well, so you guys can just click it and have access to them. And then you also have a free quiz as well on your website that you guys can go to, check it out, go through the quiz. That'll at least give you some more identifying of, okay, is this an issue or potential issue as well? So then you can start taking action on it right away. Like the sooner you take action on it, the better. It's going to help either the pregnancy, it's going to help the newborn. Um, and then you have resources on there and supplements. Any other things that you recommend people checking out as well on your website?
Yeah, we have an amazing blog that is so incredibly informative. And even if you're early on in your journey, and I hope that for every inch of my being that if you are pregnant, that you don't need us. Truly, I hope that you don't need us. But having that information and that knowledge is so powerful, either for your journey if you do end up dealing with food reactivity, or for a friend or family member when you're talking to your best friend and they're up all night with their colicky baby, and you have the knowledge and education to say, hey, I actually know a lot about that. Let me help you. Here's a great resource. So when you take the quiz, you get a full free symptoms training from me. That's completely free of charge. You can watch anytime you want to, because we want to make sure that families have that resource, right? And have the people around them to say, hey, actually, that rash, maybe that's something more than just baby acne.
Yeah, excellent. That would be a great training for anyone to check out as well in general, I think, going through pregnancy or trying to get pregnant or have a newborn. And
Yes.
so thank you so much, Dr. Trill. You just gave us so much knowledge here when people are, struggling when it comes to allergies or their baby is, and you're helping to prevent that, find the test sooner. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much for having me, Chelsea.